After World War II, America was engaged in a Cold War with the USSR, whose socialistic government threatened to consume the world with its seemingly unstoppable force. America's nationwide fear of subversive spies that burned through the nation, known as the Red Scare, created ideal conditions for the uprising of a strong political figure with a clear agenda. During the 1950s, Senator Joseph McCarthy tragically accused hundreds of U.S. citizens of being communists, resulting in a nationwide panic. The American people and their government were nevertheless unified as they triumphed over McCarthy's influence and still preserved Western capitalism. In conclusion, McCarthyism was a shocking era of persecution that set the tone for how Americans would view communism in the future. McCarthy, an arrogant Republican senator from Wisconsin, made his first big appearance in the public eye in 1950 in his Wheeling speech.
This is pretty serious. Have we had anything as serious as this so far?
Oh yes, I think we've got something much more serious right now.
Well, I'm talking about prior to this hearing.
May I answer that question, Mr.
All right.
Chairman? I think we've got a much more serious situation now in communist infiltration of the CIA. Disturbs me beyond words.
Those were the vague accusations that inspired Herbert Bloch to coin the term McCarthyism in a political cartoon. Accusations against common people and government employees alike dramatically affected America because the global powerhouses, the United States and the Soviet Union, were locked in a Cold War after World War II. Political and economic quarrels between the two left America feeling uneasy toward the idea of Russian spies in the U.S. Thus, any method deemed necessary for taking down suspected communism was okay by the frightened American public. Fear was exploited where facts were lacking. McCarthy managed to take advantage of this idea and used it for political gain, greatly magnifying and overstating communism within the American government. Asian countries were beginning to fall for communist ideologies, a phenomenon Eisenhower would later describe in his 1954 domino theory. Americans didn't want the same fate for themselves and saw the need to cleanse their country of Soviet influence from the inside. While hunting down subversives, Americans were scared into developing a strong bias. They believed anyone siding with a supposed communist must be a Soviet spy too.
If a person defends the activities of communist nations while consistently attacking the domestic and foreign policy of the United States, she may be a communist.
There could be no other reason to defend the people gunning for the downfall of Western capitalism. McCarthy quickly took advantage of this sensitive era. His ambition for attention manipulated the fear of communism in exchange for political power. While he questioned the loyalty of many Americans, his accusations were accepted without scrutiny, and he inducted a powerful following and influence. Not only common people, but also justices opted to bend to McCarthy's will, destroying the lives of the Red Scare's innocent prey for the fear of ruining their own careers. McCarthy's influence caused thousands of Americans to be wrongly fired, blacklisted, and jailed by Senate subcommittees in cases of loyalty and subversion. One of the first victims of McCarthy's prerogative was Philip Jessup. He was publicly announced as part of McCarthy's communist list and was the first to experience the consequences of McCarthy's crudeness.
At large, Philip Jessup, who flew home to testify, bitterly denies charges of Wisconsin Senator McCarthy, who accused him of having an unusual affinity for communist causes.
He faced multiple accusations by the Senate and, even though he had been proven innocent, still could not escape the damages of McCarthy's list. His entire reputation was destroyed by a single false statement. Significantly, though Jessup was, in the words of New Jersey senator who voted against him, one of the most honorable men I know, he was nonetheless too controversial to be cleared. On a roll with wrecking innocent lives, McCarthy decided to target the United States Army.
Said, well, Mr. If we send you to Washington, are you going to continue sending American money to nations which in turn ship the sinews of economic and military strength to Red China, which is running the war in Indochina, keeping in mind that if we lose Indochina, Mr. Jenkins, we will lose the Pacific and we'll be an island in a communist sea.
The televised 1954 Army McCarthy trial lasted 8 weeks, with McCarthy claiming that the U.S. Army was too lenient with communists, and the Army saying that McCarthy's friend Roy Cohn had aggressively persuaded special treatment for recruit G. David Shine. Theatrical in nature rather than professional, the Army McCarthy hearings was a major blow to McCarthy's following and credibility. Around its end, President Eisenhower finally decided to speak up on McCarthy's political presence. Eisenhower was a strong protester against Joseph McCarthy and eventually a major contributor to the downfall of McCarthyism. He told his senators to stop listening to McCarthy's ideas and to go as far as publicly renouncing his ideology. The desired effect was achieved, and shortly after the Army McCarthy trial, the Wisconsin senator's reign was ended. The collapse of McCarthy unified American citizens. After 1954, America plunged into a new age in which patriotism thrived. Americans supported the government in an attempt to avoid nuclear war with Russia predicted in movies like Stanley Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove. Notably, in return the CIA funded artistic mediums conveying themes of freedom and supported expressionist art to shadow over the Soviets' preferred realism. Overall, McCarthy induced a period of distrust, fear, and radical anti-communism in the 1950s America.
I'll take this case to the Supreme Court.
The state is the Supreme Court. Our decision is as follows. No more private property. No more you.
His role in the Second Red Scare caused as many as 10 or 12,000 businessmen, Hollywood stars, common people, and especially homosexuals to lose their jobs. They suffered these consequences only because unproven suspicions that they were Soviet spies were being circulated by similarly innocent people forced to testify. Fortunately, for those on the metaphorical chopping block, President Eisenhower's view on the matter got McCarthy out of the public eye for good. This particular figure wants, above all else, publicity. Nothing would probably please him more than to get the publicity that would be generated by the public repudiation by the president. However, though the man behind the name was ruined, the ideology carried on as strong as ever. Radical McCarthy supporters carried on his legacy after his decline. In 1954, the American Legion slandered the Girl Scouts' views on community worldwide un-American. The Red Scare had gripped the nation so tightly that, even without a ringleader, people continued to find communism where there was none. America's ability to remain capitalist conjoined its citizens through pride and patriotism. Since most Americans were against communism, it unified them to preserve their freedom to practice capitalism. In the 21st century, McCarthyism as a word carries its namesake's legacy through other inquisitions. The United States still portrays its dislike for communism today, although presently it revolves around the hatred of communism rather than the fear of it. During the mid-20th century, 2 Red Scares occurred that would prove to cause rifts in American culture. Reputations were so fragile during the Second Red Scare that in order to seem unsuspicious, it was imperative to support all things anti-communist. For generations to come, the 1950s would serve as a reminder of the dangers of a seemingly attractive socialist nation. In the end, it was the apparent danger of communism, not the misguided persecution of it, that united Americans.